What's going on, guys? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this new Bellows album, The Rose Gardener. Bellows is the bedroom pop, indie pop project of Oliver Kalb. I caught wind of this guy back in 2011 with his debut, As If to Say I Hate Daylight. What a snoozer this album was. I did like some of the aesthetics and the instrumentals, but for me, Oliver's vocal performance here was so boring. But 2013's May 5 to 12 songs totally changed my mind on this project. This is an absolutely charming little indie pop EP with all sorts of influences ranging from the Magnetic Fields to Mount Erie. It was blisteringly sarcastic at some points, but seriously poetic and beautiful at the others, and really turned me on to what Oliver was doing. 2014's Blue Breath did let me down a little bit. The instrumentals were a little too wishy-washy for my liking, but I continued to love Oliver's lyrics and vocals. And with 2016's Fist and Palm, I feel like Oliver finally found that medium he was looking for. The lyrics were still very beautiful, very classy, very poetic, but instrumentally this was just such a diverse album, spanning all sorts of genres, and that excited me. Now, it's been a while since we've heard from Oliver. I've been kind of into a lot of the singles that he's been putting out for this album. Let's chat about this new thing. This album starts off with Housekeeping. Right off the bat, we're looking at a very vast, interesting blend of indie pop genres. There are smooth saxophones, as well as a very strong synth pop vibe. And Oliver sounds like he's at the middle of this, is like some great ringleader, which is really where he should be. I don't even mind the heavy use of auto-tune vocals. Hell, there's even a sense of grandness to this track, and I love the repeated line of "I love this body." This is just a genuinely fantastic intro that really shows you what Bellows is doing. A lot of the same elements turn up on tracks like Rosebush. Once again, there's a certain grandness to this that I really love, and some of the harmonies that roll in here are absolutely stunning. Now, there's so much auto-tune on this album that when Oliver does a track like this, that's just him, no effects, it's actually seriously staggering to hear him just pull out these harmonies. It's still very eclectic, very progressive pop, but it never comes off as a stretch. Not to mention, it's incredibly charming. And then we have Denouement, which is honestly like a fantastic rock song of any genre. Here, some of the auto-tune moments are done superbly, and when they're done right, they end up giving me the chills. It's got a monster hook and some of the best harmonies of this entire album. Not to mention, with this very pristine feel throughout this whole album, it's really great to hear Bellows go for this much crunchier, much more raw sound. It's moments like this that really make me think that Bellows is onto something. And late in the album, Judgment is just pleasant from start to finish. There are no gimmicks here, there's no sitting around waiting for Oliver, this is just pleasant right from the start. This one almost has a folk rock vibe, and if you haven't guessed it by now, once again, Bellows on this album touches down on a lot of different genres. It's impressive. Like, this is a late in the album track, and we're far from the progressive pop that started this album. But honestly, I'm all for it. It makes me feel a little warm and cozy. On the other hand, Accidents Happen is a much more synthetic track. We get some very ghoulish female vocals. But this one, once again, kind of smooths out into a very progressive sounding track again. I once again love the way that these tracks just build up to these very grand atmospheres. It's very airy, it's very beautiful. Once again, I am getting a strong Magnetic Fields vibe from this. Now, this track is the first one that kind of hiccups me here. I do feel like it's a little long-winded. There are a couple of moments on this one where I feel like Oliver should have just gotten to the point already, but still, I love this track. But halfway through, we do get a couple of real snoozers. For one, Stupidest Thing. Now, up until this point, I felt like the auto-tune was really actually kind of working for the album. And it was just done with a very tasteful flair to it. But here, I just feel like this track is just way too much of everything we've heard so far. It's slow, I'm getting some flashbacks to the early days of this project, Oliver's vocals are just so dreary. It's just not what I'm into. Even the use of feedback and the crunchier sound that I more enjoyed later on in the album don't even come off very exciting here. As a matter of fact, it's moments like this that kind of make me realize just how one-dimensional this album can be at times. And I have a lot of the same feelings on Innocent and Ignorance. This is another very slow-paced tune, and once again, I'm really not feeling it. Like, I do like Oliver's very poetic lyrics here, I've enjoyed those for years, but I don't really know what's happened to the very elegant, lavish blending of genres that we've been getting so far. And Gather Ye Rosebuds is just kind of a disappointment. I mean, I actually don't really hate this. I actually think the sort of use of traditional folk music in this track is really classy, but it's only 53 seconds long. I just feel like this is an afterthought. And In Silence isn't necessarily bad, but once again, it does make me raise a little bit of an eyebrow. I don't think a lot of these tracks are bad, but I think that a lot of people are just going to be affected differently by Bellows' music. Like I've been saying, if you're not into autotune, this album is going to be a little wonky for you. But I do think that more often than not, Oliver pulls it off. And while this track is just so slow at its start, it ends up picking up into a very carefree synth-pop tune, making me feel like Oliver is still onto something. Then we have What Can I Tell You About the World. It's the most stripped-down track of the bunch. It's very personal, it's very sweet. And for the first half of it, I thought it was just alright. It does pick up, though, into a really heavenly track in the second half, though. Mostly because Oliver throws in some new instrumentals. I just honestly wish that he would have gone with that for the entire track. But most of this album I am very enamored with. The title track, for example, is just a really sweet, great, upfront folk pop ballad. It does have a very synthetic feel to it, but Oliver's incredibly emotional performance here, wow, like really brings in some human elements. Like, I love just how quiet and secretive his performance is here. Like, yeah, it's not my favorite track of the bunch, but like hearing all these lavish instrumentals flow in towards the end of the track just makes me have a big smile on my face. And The Tower is a really fascinating stretch for Bellows. I love the genuine tension that's actually built up in these verses, even if it is a little airy. And the repeated line of "I will not back down" just ends up becoming this really powerful mantra. The auto-tune vocals once again come off very pleasing. And even the way this track transitions over to a more upbeat track in the last minute, it's really awesome. Once again, it's these little details that keep messing me up. Like, I'm really not into the last minute of very stripped down vocals on The Tower. So close. And Count 'Em Down as a finale is not that good. As a matter of fact, it's probably the worst track here. For the first time on this entire album, I feel like Oliver's songwriting is coming off cheesy. But outside of that, this instrumental is the least interesting of the bunch, and easily the least adventurous. I can't find myself staying focused on this one for anything, not even when things like those horns pop in. It's honestly one of the most disappointing album closures I've heard all year. Did I mention it's over 7 minutes long? So overall, I still think Oliver is really onto something with this album. For the most part, this is a very classy, adventurous, progressive pop album with different genres coming in all over the place. You're going to get some synth pop, some folk, some progressive pop, just a lot of really interesting genres coming together. It's just a lot of small details that Oliver can seriously change very easily. And like, this would be easily an 8 out of 10. But for now, I think that this is a very interesting, decent, and adventurous synth pop and progressive pop album. I'm feeling a strong 7 on this, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what new releases you want for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, guys, have a great day.